to do it. I need you to work on this. The lead actor does not want to come out of his trailer. Yes, we got psychologist. Layla, we need to do this. I just wanted to know, Layla, there's no one else with this with me. I'll give us an option on here that I can
Good, awesome. All right.
Layla, I need you to sign here. I need to know what to do this. Layla, we need Layla.
Hi, my name is Layla Swart, and this is my masterclass on producing, brought to you by Showmax and Actorspaces. So, there are several definitions of a producer in the dictionary, but the first one that comes up is the ecological perspective, which says, a producer is an organism that produces organic compounds from simple substances, meaning producers begin food chains which feed all of life. And I think that, for me, fundamentally, the most important thing about being a producer is understanding the impact that you have on every other aspect of life. I think that everybody has a story to tell. Everything has a story. Humanity has a narrative. And the key thing about that is that everybody really wants to express their story. For me, this vocation has given me an opportunity to find people and their stories and help them get those stories heard. And today, I'd like to share with you a little bit about my process, a little bit about my challenges, and a little bit about why I think producing is the doctrine of the new age. I started my company in 2017. It's called Yellowbone Entertainment, and my vision for this company has always been to create a semi-empire of content creation. Through this process, I was 27 years old when I started the company. When I produced my first film, I am now 33 years old. And that journey really has taught me a lot about myself, but also a lot about the landscape that we're working in. And the number one priority for me and about being a producer is to educate yourself. I cannot stress enough how important it is to know every facet of the filmmaking food chain. It is so important to understand everything from what a vision would look like, what a vision would cost, what goes into creating a vision, and how you can make sure that everybody is able to operate at their highest during the execution of that vision. By educating yourself, I mean everybody wants to be in this industry. I think that the film and television industry has for so long attracted many, many people because it has this ability to give you a voice, whether you're an actor, whether you're a production designer, whether you're a scriptwriter, or whether you're just a runner. Being in an environment and a space where you're collectively putting a vision in front and you're collectively saying to the world, here is a narrative that has been created by a whole host of human beings, it gives you an opportunity, I think, to feel like you belong and to feel like you're part of a family and part of something bigger. But in order to be kind of the custodian of all of those disciplines, which is producing, ultimately, you really do have to know how everything works and what everybody brings to the party. I started in this industry when I was 18 years old. I went to go and study film and media production, but I took a job as a production assistant as an 18-year-old on a set. And starting from a camera assistant level, I remember that they said to me on the first day, you need to run to the truck as quickly as possible and get a sky hook and a long weight. And I did that. I did not know what that was. I went to the truck and everyone said they were waiting on me. They weren't gonna roll. They had to get the sky hook and this long weight. I went into the lighting truck, I went into the camera truck, nobody knew what I was talking about. And then ultimately discovered that there was no such thing as a sky hook or a long weight. And that was my introduction to the film world. For me, going from production assistant, camera assistant, to ultimately being an editor, going through production, cost coordination, there is not very many disciplines within the film and television sector that I have not forced myself to partake in. And I think that's really, truly one of the best things that could have happened for me. Because when I walk onto a set of my own, when I am costing a production, I know what everybody's challenges are. I know when something should cost this much, when something is going to take this much time. And that has really come from spending the last decade or so becoming part of a crew, becoming part of the fabric of what actually makes film and television happen, which is the people that work on those sets. So educating yourself in terms of learning how these mechanisms work, learning where to access funds, learning where and who and what you need in order to execute the vision in front of you is as crucial as having a creative vision in the first place. And I don't think people understand that, filmmaking is not just an art. It's one of a very specific and special disciplines that are both business and art. If you go to Hollywood and you say, I want to be a producer, they're not going to tell you to go to UCT or AFTA. They're going to tell you to study a BCom. And there's a reason for that, because more and more what we're discovering as our sector evolves and we become more adept at providing and creating content, that this is actually massively a business. And understanding finances, understanding the mundane things about running a company, SARS, tax, VAT, all of those kinds of things are ultimately what's going to be what makes your company succeed at the end of the day. And those things are easily accessible. Those things are easy to learn. The second point for me is to believe in magic. I think in partnership with what I've just said about being pedantic about the details and educating yourself, the second most important thing is to be slightly delusional. I think that there is nobody who has ever achieved something phenomenal in this lifetime that hasn't been slightly crazy. And by crazy, I mean that you have to be able to create a reality in your mind that you don't question, and that becomes sort of second nature to you in terms of believing in the impossible. Because what we do is really the business of the impossible. You come with an idea, you say, hey, I'm going to bring 200 people together to make this a reality. I'm going to put it on TV screens and I'm going to hope people watch it. That is make-believe in a large sense. And I think to be able to cultivate a sense within yourself where you believe in the impossible, where you are able to eliminate doubt when doubt is something that stands in your way. And that truly is a skill. And it starts, I believe, with yourself. So to be able to cultivate a sense of self, a sense of your purpose, a sense of who you are, and a sense of what you want are crucial ingredients of being a producer, of being a director, of being a visionary. Another quote that I believe in that has always kind of supported that theory of believing in magic is, I create as I speak. And I think as I've progressed on my journey in the film and television space, really believing what you speak and creating as you speak becomes kind of a mantra. And I think working on self and your own sense of belief is just as important as educating yourself. Every challenge is an opportunity. I remember coming from an editing background, there would be times when I'd look at what people were shooting and had given me to edit, and I'd be like, this is terrible. Why did they shoot this like this? I have no idea how I'm going to fix that. And initially I'd be like, this is the weak point of the film. And now what I've learned to do is look at the weak point of everything as the opportunity to be the best point of everything. So for me, when I look at a weak scene, when I look at a problematic area of a film or TV show, I look at it as going, this is an opportunity to make this the best part of the film. And how do I do that? I'm going to sit and I'm going to put everything into this one moment and make sure that what soundtrack I choose, how I cut it, how it's shot, whatever the situation or scenario is, using that as a driving force to ensure that it's the best. Because if your weakest point becomes your best point, then really you're in a good space. Rejection is inevitable. I think that this is one of the hardest industries to be in because rejection is more frequent than success. And I think we chase this dream because we want success. We want a taste of what it feels like to win, what it feels like to touch and impact the lives of so many people by the stories that we tell. But 90% of the time, it doesn't work out that way. But it's very important to remember that every single step you take is a step towards success. And failure and rejection is often the thing that molds you into the person that you need to be, into the creative that you need to be. And if we could just change our perspective on the way that we look at failure and the way that we look at rejection, I think that the journey will be 10 times easier. And that's because it's a personal field that we're in. Our sense of self and our sense of belief in ourselves is the most important factor towards success. So when you hit failure, when you hit rejection, usually your confidence takes a knock. And usually that's the point when you give up, when you say, okay, this isn't for me, or this is too hard. And I think that's the thing that needs to be overcome, because as soon as you overcome that and you look at failure and rejection as a beautiful aspect of your journey towards winning, then it's not so bad at all. If you imagine life as a story, you imagine every aspect of life that has a story to tell, and your job is to be the facilitator of that story being told, then also look at your journey as the same story. Whenever you're in doubt about a decision that you need to make, think about who's writing your story. Think about how would this story go if I make this decision. And I find that that's always the best guide to trusting your gut and to trusting your instinct, is to look at your story and say, if I give up now, what does the story look like? No, I won't still be here. If I continue, if I fight this fight, if I continue putting everything that I am into this journey, what does the story look like? People who win are usually people who never give up. And sometimes it's as simple as just understanding the concept of, if you put one foot in front of the next, you will move forward. And when times get tough, I think that that's always something I've drawn strength from, is that every day wake up and show up, and ultimately you will succeed. In terms of my process with producing, I firstly look at the people I'm surrounded by. And maybe every project deserves different people, and you'll definitely get a sense of the energy of the vision of the project when it comes to you. So first step is choosing the people. Choosing people for me is always the fun part of the job. It's who do I entrust this vision with, who is skilled enough in this discipline and that discipline to bring their magic or collective magic to the bigger picture. Choosing the DOP, choosing the actors, choosing the writers. That is always something I have in my mind before I've even financed a project. My second step usually is to create what I call a pitch deck. Some people call it a dossier or a treatment of the project. This is something that we put a lot of effort into at my production house. I think this is because it enables us all to have a clear image of what this product is, what would it look like when it's packaged, and also to be able to send it out very quickly to as many people as possible. That includes usually a title with a kick-ass, usually title page that gives you a sense of what the film or television show or piece of content is going to look like. It includes a log line, a synopsis, a motivation from us as the creators of the product, and why we're doing this and where we're doing it. And then also sometimes we'll give a few elements in terms of who we envision working on the production. Once we have this deck, I mean, we also feel like this is the first step taken. We're like, yes, here it is, it's tangible. And I think for a producer, it really gives you a good sense of what you have in your pipeline. We then send that out to as many people as we think might be interested in this particular production. And also to remember that, you know, not every story is for everyone. It's very, very important to identify and research who the output is for what you're making. You should never make something without knowing where it could end up. Because then it's probably not going to get made. You'll see as one of the fundamental questions for every funder is, how is this being distributed? And there's a reason for that. What I'm going to offer Netflix is not going to be the same thing as what I'm going to offer Disney Plus or what I'm going to offer SABC One, but they all have their different benefits in terms of different audiences and markets. So really honing in your pitch deck who this is for, why it's for them, and how that makes sense to the audience you're trying to reach is crucial. Understanding audience now more than ever is the most crucial aspect of being a producer. We are entering a golden age of content creation, but the first sort of mountain of that golden age is that we are making films more than ever before for the consumer. The audience is the primary focus right now. And I'm not saying that in a few years' time there won't be an artistic revolution. I hope so. I'm sure there will be. And I look forward to it as well. But right now, the aim is to become sustainable. The aim is to become a reliable and trusted content provider. And through that relationship, through becoming a trusted content provider, you will ultimately be able to be allowed and given the scope to do the artistic work that's in your heart. Budgeting a production is so key to you having control of your production. Budgets are always going to be, to some degree, estimates. There are always going to be parameters. But if you can learn the art of detailing your budget, to the T, if you can understand what every single element costs on your set, you're able to make a decision like that. If somebody comes to you and says, okay, I need a crane for this day, there's nowhere else I can do it, the crane costs 25,000 Rand for the day, you can immediately go, okay, I know what that costs, and I can subtract and I can go, yes, you can have the crane. You have to be able to empower yourself to understand that every element on your film set, every element of your story, every element of your vision costs money. If somebody says, oh, we'll do it with green screen, what does that cost in time terms? What does that cost in money terms? Is it a better decision to make? And once you are able to, I think, be confident in your decision making on a set, you will have so much more control and you'll be free to make certain decisions. And then after that, it's all about script work and development, which kind of sees you as the producer of being more of a custodian and more of an overseer of the creative partners that you've chosen. And that is a beautiful aspect of what you do, to be able to nurture your director, to be able to support them. And also another key thing is, no matter what your opinion is, understand that if a director walks onto a set, if an actor walks onto a set and they do not feel confident, they're not going to give you their best. So however you choose to tackle what you disagree with in terms of your creative team, make sure that you always make them feel super confident, because ultimately their confidence is going to be your success. It is no use for you to put doubt in their minds right before they're about to shoot. It just doesn't work. And I find a lot of producers do that. They want to fight, they want to argue, they want to be saying this doesn't look good. You need to get through it somehow, and the only way you can get through it is making sure that those people in your front line are armed with enough self-esteem to make the best of what they've been presented with, because this stuff is hard. And then production is ultimately a series of nightmares and and panic attacks, which tends to go by very quickly. But I like to look at production in its sort of most micro form. Get through every minute, get through every hour, get through every day, and that's the ultimate goal. You kind of like truncate time and make sure that all your boxes are ticked on a daily basis, because that's the best that you can do. And there will be problems, and they will come fast and hard and consistently, and honing your own resilience is really the key to getting through a film production, because that's the nature of it. I think it is a storm in a teacup. It is bringing so many different creative minds and temperamental people, and people who are really okay with being in the film and television industry in the first place, which means there's definitely something wrong with them, and bringing them all together and making sure that they operate and output at their best. Lastly, the post-production period. I like a quote from Martin Scorsese where he says that there has never been one time when he hasn't thrown up after looking at a first cut of his film. And that is kind of where the dream ends. It's really where you wake up and you go, oh my gosh, this is not as amazing as I thought it was. And then you start from scratch again, and you start writing the film again, and you start bringing in the new creatives who make part of that ecosystem of post-production, and you start building the product again to its brilliance. That for me really is the most testing time of the whole process, is post-production, and it's also the period I feel that people neglect the most, because that is where you make the film. Learn to have a sense of humor. Don't take yourself too seriously. It is just a movie.